The next affair that I wish to move on to is having a good example and role model. A role model, and this is from the necessities of good tarbiyah, as the ulama they have mentioned. It is something well known that a child is amazed by his father and loves it to imitate him and to follow him. And we've already mentioned this previously. It is therefore obligatory upon fathers and mothers and others to cultivate their children and not to contradict what they say with how they act. They should not contradict. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Oh, you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do? You tell the children not to do something, then you're the first one to do. You tell children, raise your trousers above the ankles, and you're walking around yourself musbil. You tell the children not to listen to music, and then you are filling your ears with music yourself. You think your children can't see hypocrisy? The thing about children when they're young is that children don't see grey. They only see black and white. Right? Not literally in terms of color, but in habits. They see black and white. Dad says smoking is bad for you, but he's smoking. Right? Obviously the children aren't sophisticated enough to understand hypocrisy in details, but they know he's telling me not to do it, but he does it. By the age of 12 and 13, all of that comes back to him. He was smoking, but he was telling me not to smoke. He was listening to music and telling me not to listen to music. Right? This is something, subhanAllah, that the children pick up upon. Why? Because children see black and white. The sophisticated thought processes get developed later on, when they see that actually, people can fall short. And they recognize that. But that comes later. But by that time, the child himself may be lost. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said regarding the Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, that Shu'aib said to his people, وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أُخَالِفَكُمْ إِلَى مَا أَنْهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ إِنْ أُرِيدُ إِلَّا الْإِصْلَاحِ. He said, I wish not that I act in contradiction to you and to do that which I forbid you from. Right? This is what he said. And I do not wish to do except to reform and to rectify. So why would a prophet come and tell the people to do something and he's not doing it himself? He said, I will not do that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for rectification. Rectification is what? That when you set that example, you stick to it yourself. Publicly and privately. Stick to it yourselves. The poet said, do not forbid the creation and then do the thing yourself. Shame on you if you do that. You forbid the khalq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for doing something and do it yourself. Shame on you. Shame on you. And you should feel shame that you tell your children not to do something and then you do it yourself. And if you do it yourself because you have got into a bad habit, then seek forgiveness from Allah and tell Allah to protect your children from that and prevent it from yourself and strive for yourselves. Sisters, for example, and and there are mothers who can't resist applying some makeup before they leave the home. That lipstick has to come on, or something has to come on, or some jewelry has to come on. And the daughter's watching mum. And then the mum says to her child, don't you dare wear makeup when you leave the house. What's the child thinking? But you wear it, mum. But because mother's angry, the child is not going to respond, but the child has already, they've absorbed that. Mom's telling me to do something that she doesn't do herself. All right, we see other mothers who come and they wear the hijab correctly. All right, so in your house you tell your child, Islam, 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 Sunnah, Sunnah, Sunnah. But you don't wear the hijab correctly. You don't wear the hijab correctly. All right, so the child thinks to himself or herself, she's always telling me Sunnah, obey Allah, but she's not obeying Allah. Children think in black and white. So they think, well, if she does it, I can do it. And if she doesn't condemn herself, she can't condemn me. Because that happens with children as they get older. Because sometimes when those youth come to you, and I say, Ya akhi, my son, nephew, what's wrong? He said, who are they to tell me what to do, uncle? Who are they to tell me? They do this and they do that and they tell me not to do it. She doesn't wear hijab correctly and she wants me to do it. They're talking about following the sunnah, but they don't follow the sunnah. Children, as they grow and into their teenage years, that they begin to absorb those matters, they see contradictions. And because they're still in that early stage of development, they've got a lot of growing up to do. They've still got a lot of years in front of them. So things are difficult for them. They can't really, that jigsaw puzzle in their mind is not really coming together yet. That comes later on in life with wisdom and ilm and experience. But that's not really there yet. And this is why, I have this, in all of the years that I've seen our youth, I've recognized that if you hold on to your children, you protect them between the ages of 12 and 19. Because that's when they have some quwwah and some strength. And now they are a bit more opinionated. Now they want to respond to you. Protect them between the ages of 12 and 19. Right? At this stage, they should be closer to you than they ever were before or after. Because this is the vulnerable age. This is the age where they want to discover. They want to experiment. They're seeing other kids doing something. Why can't I do it? They see other kids smoking or drinking or listening to music or fornicating or going off to the movies or going off to clubs and bars. They're tempted by that. At the age of 12, because they're physically weak, boys at that age and even girls at that age, they're still a bit timid and small bodily. But by the age of 15 and 16, they've actually physically grown. Right? So now, and I know that they're vulnerable. I mean, that's why you say, you were a teenager once. You've heard the statement, right? Oh, you were a teenager once. They're just teenagers. They're going through this teenage phase. But that teenage phase, you notice that many parents, that they let their children go off when they're teenagers. Let them go and discover themselves. But that's the age, actually, when you need to bring them closer to you and build that bond of family and companionship even stronger at that age. Not to let them loose and let them off the leash. No, now that you keep them close to you. Wherever you go, take them with you. You're going to a conference, take them with you. You don't say, I'm going to that's what you're doing. Well, I'm going to stay at home, Dad. So you leave the house, he's on the computer. Facebook and Twitter and this and whatever else is out there. Emailing this one and going to this website, downloading that. The dad's not here. I better plug in my iPhone and get whatever I want down from iTunes and I'm out. So what were you doing whilst I was at the dars? I was just doing some homework, Dad. Homework. This is the issue, you see, my brothers and sisters, that at a time when they're most vulnerable and they're prone to outside influences and dangerous influences. And the thing is, many other religions have recognized that. The Christians have recognized that. Many of the Jewish, denominations have recognized that. Right? And that's why there's a huge body of literature and books out there regarding children. How to protect them from the dangers of society. But the thing is, they come from the background or from the premise of living in a liberal society. And we know that we want our children to be raised in this liberal society anyway. So things such as homosexuality and, lesbians and transgenders and, music and fornication and promiscuity and going to clubs and trying different types of drugs and smoking this and taking that tablet and the acid tablet and the E-tablet and whatever else is out there and these so-called legal highs that we have in Europe now. I don't know if you have them here also. That these types of things that they're experimenting with. So now, not now, but actually this is something that is maybe a quarter of a century old that you see even amongst Jews and Christians and other faiths, that you see them writing books on how to cultivate your children to protect them from the harms of society, sex before marriage. Right? But what does liberal society teach you? Liberal society says, well, as long as you've got a condom in your pocket, you're okay. Because you don't want to catch a disease. They're not. And you don't want, as long as make sure that when you're 13 and 14 and you are going to have sexual relationships with a boy, make sure that either he uses a condom or you use a condom because you don't want to be a single mother. See the premise they're coming from? The premise they're coming from is already gone. We've lost it. Innocence is lost. All right? So what do we do now? Prevent a pregnancy. Decades ago, a girl could never, a grown woman or a young girl could never get the morning after pill. Now, in every chemist in the United Kingdom, you can walk in the following morning and a 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl can go in and buy a morning after pill to stop the pregnancy, to abort before it, goes any further. Common. It's illegal for minors to have sex in England below the age of 16. They're not supposed to. But if they go to the doctor The doctor will write the contraception pill even for a girl of 13 years old. Right? So they've already decided that, we're already down that road. But there are people within, of course, amongst Muslims primarily, but even amongst other faiths, they don't want that for their children. No, this is not the society that we envision. This is not the society that we want. So how do we protect ourselves? We protect ourselves through education, cultivation, in Islam, of course, piety and sidq and ikhlas, and thinking about the hereafter. Thinking about how you're going to face your Lord. Number one, as a parent. Number two, as a child, meaning as a youth, who's going to have to answer to Allah. Right? So these are issues, my brothers and sisters, that every Muslim, and more so the Salafi, because the Salafi, of course, is an individual who is the closest of all of the people in following guidance. And the Salafi is the most knowledgeable of the people. And the Salafi is the wisest of the people. And the Salafi is the one who puts everything in its proper place. That's the Salafi. Because the Salafi is guided by revelation. He's guided by the example of the Sahaba. He's guided by the example of the earlier generations. But also, he lives in the context of the society that he lives in, knowing how to behave.